Hey everybody, this is Algebra 2, Lesson 45. In this lesson, we're going to cover the difference of two squares theorem. Alright, so we remember that we can see that these two are two different forms of the same equation. So to demonstrate that, so if we have x squared equals 4, we can do minus 4, and we get x squared minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so those would cancel each other. You'd end up with 0 there. Alright, so those are two different forms of the same equation, and it's the difference of two squares and can be solved by factoring. So remember when we factored these, we could draw two parentheses, and the square root of x squared is x on both of these, and then the square root of 4 is 2, and we would have minus 2 and plus 2, and that equals 0. Alright, so we're going to end up with two answers. X minus 2 equals 0, and we would do plus 2, and we would get x equals 2. And then the other one, so that's this first one right here, x plus 2 equals 0. We would do minus 2, and we get x equals negative 2. And we've been doing problems like that, and I could review this real quick and show you how that works. So if we had x times x, that would be x squared, and x times 2 is plus 2x, and then we'd have right there, we'll make minus 2x, and then 2 times 2 is negative 4, and then these two terms cancel each other. They're like terms. When we combine them, negative 2 and positive 2 cancel each other out. We get x squared minus 4 equals 0. So that takes us back. That's how we solve that. Okay. So you'll notice that on these we get two answers. We're going to get a negative and a positive of the square root of that constant term. Okay. This same idea, so the idea that we get from that is that we can just square root this and square root this, and we come up with x equals the negative square root of 3, or x equals the positive square root of 3. And this can be written like this, with the negative and the positive stacked over each other. So x equals the positive or negative square root of 3. Okay. The same idea can be The same idea can be used for terms that have a constant. So on this one, we've got this whole thing right here, x plus 2 is squared. So if we square root this whole thing, and we square root this whole thing, we're going to have x plus 2, this radical sign just eliminates that square, equals the square root of 3. Now we can subtract this 2 from both sides, and it would be the positive or negative square root of 3. And subtract the 2, and we're going to get x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. Okay, just like that. All right, let's try some example problems here to show you how to do this. All right, so on 45.1, it says to solve this one. All right, so this one has this whole x plus 17 is being squared, and that equals 2. So we have to square root this whole thing to get rid of the square. So the root, the radical sign, and the 2 cancel each other. So we end up with x plus 17. Now whatever we do to this side, we have to do to that side, so we square root that. So equals the positive or negative square root of 2. Now we can subtract 17 from both sides. These cancel, and we get x equals negative 17 plus or minus the square root of 2. And that's the answer right there to that one. Okay? So you're just going to square each side, or root each side, and go from there. All right, on this one, same thing. So we're going to have to do the square root of both sides of that equation. Okay, so here we've got square root of this one and square root of this one. That'll cancel out that. And then we get x plus 2 over 5 equals the positive and negative root of 3. Okay, now we're going to do minus 2 over 5 and minus 2 over 5. These cancel. And we're going to get x equals negative 2 over 5 plus or minus the square root of 3. These are actually really, really easy. You could write it with the plus or minus, or you could write it with like this, x equals negative 2 over 5 times the square root of 3, and x equals positive 2 over 5 times the square root of 3. See, minus, wait, both of these are negative. And we got a minus there, and we got a plus here. That's what it is, plus or minus. All right, so 2 answers. All right, next one is, now it's time for practice problems. So that's pretty easy. Pause the video, do the practice problems, and I'll come back and work on them. All right, practice A. Is x squared equals 14. Okay, so we're going to square root this, and we're going to square root that, and we're going to say x equals the positive or negative square root of 14. And that is basically how to solve that. That's the answer. I'll accept that answer. Right there. Or you could have written x equals positive square root of 14. X equals the negative square root of 14. So you could have these 2 answers. This one's a little easier to write. You just use that positive, negative sign. All right, B. Okay, for this one, we're going to square root all of this and square root that. So we're going to get x plus 9 equals positive or negative square root of 11. All right, now we just got to do minus 9, minus 9. Those cancel, and we get x equals negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 11. You could write it like that as the answer. Or you could also write it as 2 answers. X equals negative 9 plus the square root of 11. And x equals negative 9 minus the square root of 11. It means the same thing. All right, and last practice problem. And this one's exactly like the others. So we're going to square root that and square root that. So we get x plus 1 over 7 equals positive or negative square root of 8. And then we're going to do minus 1 over 7. And those cancel, and we get x equals negative 1/7 plus or minus the square root of 8. Now, the square root of 8 right here, we're going to want to break that down to the square root of 2 times the square root of 4. Okay, and then 4, we can square root that. We know the square root of that is 2. So the actual answer is x equals negative 1 over 7 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2. All right, so that's the answer to that one. Make sure that you break down any roots that you can. Okay, so try to break those down the most that you can, simplify as much as you can. All right, that's it for lesson, what was this one? 45. So thanks for watching.